I finished watching The Acolyte, and you know what? Like I said here, it's not that bad. There's actually a lot of good stuff to like about it. And yet, every Star Wars series is hated more than the one before. Is there anything that can be done? I've been a Star Wars fan since 1977. Now, some younger Star Wars fans seem to think that that makes me completely unreliable as a critic of Star Wars. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I tend to enjoy Star Wars for what it is, something that brings me back to my childhood, and I tend to not pick it apart too much unless it gets kind of weird and deserves to be picked apart. There are some things about the latest Disney shows that I didn't like. There are a lot of things I did like, and there are some things that I picked apart. When you look at Star Wars fans, I don't think they've been treated very well by Disney. Now, remember, Disney bought Lucasfilm, the entire company, and took Star Wars, which had mostly been at that point a kind of a thing of the past, with just, and it had been sustained by things like books and comics and secondary material. And they decided to bring it back so it was roaring into the future. They put 3 more movies into the pipeline, and they started production of TV show after TV show. Every single aspect, with even the tiniest bit of connection to the Star Wars universe became a TV show. Disney took the parts of Star Wars that they liked, and they left behind the parts of Star Wars that they didn't like. The comics and secondary materials and books had built this really expanded universe of what had happened after Return of the Jedi. Luke Skywalker took a wife, and Leia became the president of the New Republic, and we got to learn, just so much more. We got to explore the motivations of these characters in a way that we never had in the movies. And Disney came around and said, nope, this was a huge mistake. Creators like Leslie Headland and Dave Filoni, who have been making Star Wars TV shows, have been trying to bring back a lot of that stuff from the old books and comics whenever they possibly can. But it's too little too late. Disney should have respected all of that stuff and built stories around it. They could have changed it a little bit, just like Marvel did when they adapted stuff from comics into the movies. They could have done that and people would have been okay with it. Instead, they just pushed it all away and pushed away a lot of fans at the same time. When you look at Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi, I personally liked it. A lot of people my age did not, because it started to push Star Wars in a new direction. It kind of focused it back toward a younger generation and their values. Instead of honoring the things that we grew up with, it said, push all that stuff away. A lot of older Star Wars fans felt really alienated at that point. I still think it was a great movie, and I think if they had stayed along that path, it would have been bumpy, but they could have done it. But instead, they bowed to pressure, they bowed to profits, and they came up with Episode 9, which I consider the worst of all of the 9 movies. In fact, it's the only Star Wars movie that I don't actually own. So the question becomes, can Star Wars be saved? And my answer is yes. You have to let Star Wars rest. You have to give people time to miss it. And then you can bring it back. You can't exhaust the fans like that, because they're already not really on your side. They're already feeling like you don't have their best interests in mind, that you're just after making money, and that you, Disney, know that they'll watch pretty much anything you put out there, so it doesn't necessarily have to be that good. It's just bad faith. All of that can go away if Disney is just willing to let Star Wars sit for 5 to 7 years. Just let it sit. Stop coming up with lower end stuff that just seems really derivative, and people will come back. Another thing that you have to do, Disney, is you have to decide where you're going and stick with it. There are basically 3 ways that you can go. If you're J.J. Abrams, a filmmaker I have huge respect for, Well, what you're going to do is you're going to make crowd-pleasing movies, stuff that people can digest easily, that just feels like fun, and it's great, and and people like that. And it's going to make money for you, which is really important. You can go in that direction, but that's going to mean you have to give up a lot. It means you're going to have to give up all of this lore, all this stuff that's kind of behind you that a lot of the fans still really love. Or, completely different way, you can go the Dave Filoni method. He wants to create a Star Wars universe that's very closely tied to the material that has been created since Disney took over. And he wants you to have a real knowledge and understanding of that, and also a decent knowledge and understanding of everything from the old, what they used to call the expanded universe, now they call Legends, so that you can be so well versed in what's going on that you can just appreciate every little thing. The third way to go is the Leslie Headland way. She's the person who did The Acolyte, and she tried to thread the needle. She tried to come up with something that new fans and old would really appreciate. And what happened, with the exception of yours truly, I think, nobody appreciated it. Now, I don't think that's the right way to go. I think that you pick a lane, and I think you stay in it, and you wait that 5 to 7 years, and then you come back with something that's either super crowd-pleasing and new, or dependent deeply on this past mythology. In the meantime, you can spend the next 5 to 7 years catering to and apologizing to the fans. And you can show your appreciation to the fans who have stuck with you through thick and thin. And let's be honest, a lot of it's been thin. Do you think that what I have in mind for Star Wars is going to save it? Or do you think that Star Wars is totally beyond saving? I'd love to hear what your point of view is on it. And while you're at it, like, subscribe, ring that little bell. Meantime, that's it for me, your middle-aged hack. I will see you again next time.